Can anyone hear us? Yeah? Great, perfect. So we're going to take about 20 minutes to talk about some of the projects we're doing around volumetric video, but specifically our company is really focused on holographic collaboration. Javier?
Yeah, so here you can see our product, HoloLive 1. HoloLive 1 is our software for capturing and streaming 3D humans instantly. And the way that we do that is thanks to using depth cameras and our reality capture solution based on voxels, on volumetric pixels. We can capture a person in real time and stream it across different locations and across different devices.
Are there any Germans in the audience? Okay, so then you know, so that is Ter Stegen, so that is actually your goalkeeper, just so you understand, he's a big supporter of us. So there you go. Really talk a bit about HR. So the theme is about how do you do HR onboarding, a bit of training. One of the things that we see with a number of the enterprises that we work with is with the expansion of remote work, you feel that there's this sense of crisis of connection, right? Where a lot of companies, because people are at such distance, they're kind of on a 2D Zoom call, they feel really disassociated from the organization, which is also another thing, which is the organizational culture. And if you think about the manifestation of how companies create the organization, one of the most important pieces is the physical attributes of the building or going into the rooms. So I used to work for Microsoft as a simple example. All the Microsoft buildings the last 10 years were completely changed based on the philosophy, the office is not a place to work, it's a place to collaborate. So all the rooms were basically changed to different ways of how people could interact. So that contributes to the organizational culture. So when you do virtual onboarding, the sense of isolation is very strong, you see with that. The remote employees can't get that sense of like, hey, how do I get the office interaction? Everyone talks about going to the coffee machine or the water cooler and having that sort of impromptu action. There's no clear lines of communication, so it's really hard to ping somebody because you're usually in a very structured, let's say, mass education platform and you're not really there interacting with anybody. And then finally, there's usually an information overload. So with remote work, everyone tends to have said, okay, you have to learn this presentation, you have to read this study, and so you miss that human element, right, completely. So, from that point of view, where we believe in holographic collaboration and the onboarding, we have a couple of key principles. One is that we don't necessarily believe in avatars. We actually think photorealistic, authentic, true holograms are really important for building trust, right? And so that, you know, we want to create that experience, that human experience. But also, you want to create the organizational twin. So to address that problem of the organization, you want to create a photorealistic digital version. And in the case you see in the picture here, actually is the headquarters for Deutsche Telekom in Bonn. And here you see an example of a photorealistic hologram actually interacting at the front desk. So if you want to do a simulation or a scenario, the person is actually working in the real environment, interacting with the other person in this sort of clip. So that's an example of what we mean by really creating that photorealism and no cartoonish, but you can actually train and onboard people in the actual environment. That brings the second key piece, which is live holograms. So yes, it's great to be floating around as a weeble wobble and around the conference board, but ultimately that's not how we interact as human beings, right? So live holograms, that's our specialization. We bring that to the onboarding. And then when you look at the interactive content, I think that's becoming more and more pervasive. So you have different levels of immersiveness. You can have a 3D directional, bidirectional call. Or if you say, hey, I really want to be in this on this stage and really interact with people, we can holoport people into that and create a truly immersive experience using a VR headset. And then finally, I think the point is the simplicity of which you want to be able to get people to interact on the onboarding. A lot of the equipment you see, you have to buy special equipment. We've been able to actually get it to a mobile where an HR manager can actually, on his desk, you or he or she can use their mobile and actually conduct a holographic call with the mobile through a live stream. And so we've lowered the threshold for people to get engaged and get involved into this holographic world. Javier?
So here, well, as we are dealing with some problems with the audio, I'm going to explain this demo. Here you can see the live capture of my hologram and one of my colleagues simulating a job interview. This could be a scenario in which we experience in virtual reality or in a 3D display or on a smartphone device the possibility of interacting together in three-dimensional space, so what Brent was discussing before, sharing that common space in which we can engage with each other. And that could be applied not only to this job interview, but it could be any training scenario or collaboration scenario that you can imagine. Here we are going to see the full video, I believe.
Can't quite get the video.
Yes. Okay, this is better. Okay. I will project more. So this is another scenario. I'm not sure if we have the video. Should I explain it through this one?
Yeah, just explain. Let me see if I pull up the
All right. So maybe just go back to...
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. So in this scenario, you can imagine for retail, let's say you want to train your sales force to sell a particular, in this case, a luxury brand is training the sales force to sell the luxury watch. So this scenario will be you are having a shopping assistant that is a hologram instead of an avatar. And why is that relevant is because we have the trust to this person. And that is very important for the luxury brands because they want to establish this connection with the customer. They want to have an avatar that they can relate with. So they really want to have that experience for affluent clients to be able to see the latest 3D models of the different watches that they can purchase and have that engagement with the person that is showing to them.
Cool. So one of the things that most people ask, because we're in the early stages of holographic technology, is like, so now you have photorealistic 3D. Why is that any better than 2D? And what's kind of interesting is that if you come to our booth, you can actually see some of the new technology on a 3D light display. And when you actually put people behind an actual true 3D display, whether it be with the goggles, glasses, you can see that there's a number of neurological points that actually start kicking in. There is, aside from the wow effect, but there is a study of working with, also this is coming from Google, but we have exactly the same type of similar study with our similar system. You can see things like memory retention is increased. Because all of a sudden, just by having a horizon line, having eye tracking, and you're looking at someone with depth in 3D, they're much more engaged than then kind of switching off from that Zoom call. Also, if you look at nonverbal cues, people use their hands more. They start actually, because of the fact it feels natural, they start using natural body language more than just sitting behind a screen with 10 other people on a Zoom call. And so when you start looking at that, people are much more focused because with the voxels that we use, these 3D pixels, we can actually zoom in much more on the face. So we can actually adapt the voxels so you can actually get that trust because most people look at the eyes and the contact. That's really the most essence of the contact. Everything else is kind of faded out, but we can get that voxel technology to really do, like I say, a high definition 4K, and that builds more trust, but it builds also more engagement.
And well, coming back on the last one.
Sorry.
Just to mention that we not only come from a background of advanced 3D graphics, so voxels, volumetric pixels powering our technology. That's actually what it makes possible the real-time capture and streaming of these holograms versus recorded content. We also have a background in neuroscience. So from the very beginning, we understood how important the body, your own body and the body of your colleagues or your family adds to the experience. There is better memory recall, there is better interactivity, you feel in agency of what is happening in this virtual space by being present yourself and being present with your colleagues and with your family. So that's a big difference as well from the neuroscience point of view compared to avatars. You can relate to the other people. It's a truly social interaction.
Yeah, that's great. And so when you're talking to HR people, that is actually what impresses them. Not so much the technology as it is, wow. So more people retain more of the onboarding material.
So here you can see both some of the use cases that our solution can address, as well as the different devices that you can use for these use cases. So if we start from that side of the slide, you have content creation. So as an example, we created an immersive experience for Football Club Barcelona. In this case, you could experience the football player recorded as a hologram and integrate it on your smartphone. You could see and interact with that recording and change the point of view, as an example. We also have the possibility of creating communication experiences. So imagine a bi-directional call between two locations using a 3D display. You can really engage with the other person. It's like a window to the other space in which they are, because the hologram is really popping out from the screen. You don't need to wear VR or AR glasses. You really have the feeling of the other person being in front of you through this window. So it's much more engaging conversation. We have also developed solutions for holoportation. So imagine this presentation here. I could be a keynote speaker in a virtual environment, and you could access as the audience in your virtual reality headset. So imagine the CEO of Microsoft is addressing all different offices across the world, and they are joining on a headset and participating live into the presentation and being able to ask questions to that person. You can really be part of it. And finally, if you want the real, I don't know how to pronounce that, the same real use cases.
I think the ultimate use case is true three-dimensional collaboration, where you're inside a three-dimensional space as photorealistic holograms inside, let's say, manipulating objects in 3D, or being on, let's say, the factory floor. So not every meeting is necessarily a Zoom call. Many companies, you can think of Philip Morris on the tobacco factory on the line. How do I change and interact with different machines or wrapping producers? So the ability of 3D collaboration that's how we see ultimately we're going to go, where you have multiple perspectives. So we're all interacting from different points of view. It's not a single point of perspective, and then we can actually manipulate objects live in 3D in real time. And that's where we think it's ultimately going. Yeah.
And maybe before we jump into the next one, because we titled this presentation as HoloLive Cloud, why a cloud could help with HR onboarding. And you can see out there the barriers of volumetric video and holograms. How do I capture myself? I need multiple cameras. I need a green screen studio. How do I distribute this content? I should be able to live stream it. I will have to have a cloud infrastructure to deliver. Which devices can I use? We all know the interoperability of the metaverse and XR is very complicated. So that's why our proposal is a cloud, and we want to share with you this vision.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen working with enterprise customers is they want to have the ability to scale. They want to have the ability to easily interact with their infrastructure, those 3D assets. So one thing we've now launched is our HoloLive Cloud, and effectively we're managing the distribution plane from the capture to the rendering to the streaming right through to the consumption. The ability of having a cloud means that any company at any time with any team can actually spin up the GPUs, they can spin up the rendering of their 3D assets, and they can teleport themselves or have a call just like you would with a typical, let's say, Zoom call, but albeit in 3D. And so with the HoloLive Cloud, we're really excited about this because already the feedback from a couple of our major, let's say, corporate sponsors has been it's been super positive. So with the addition of a mobile phone or any type of capture device, you're not restricted to the hardware footprint of probably many of you see those Azure Kinect cameras or typical depth cameras. There is depth camera pretty much in every high-end mobile phone in your pocket right now today. So with that capability plus the ability to scale on the cloud, we're pretty excited that we can actually bring these type of training scenarios to pretty much any customer anywhere in the world at any time. Anything you want to add there on that?
No, just reiterate on the consuming part. One of the problems of volumetric video and realistic holograms is where do I actually, I'm able to consume it. So again, through the cloud and making the cloud rendering of our voxels happen, there we can deliver the content to any device, to a tablet, to a 3D display, to a VR headset, and that will depend on the use case, whether you want the use case to be more immersive and be with your colleagues setting a virtual environment, or whether you want to have a 3D video call on your tablet.
Cool. So we'll leave it there. Hopefully I got you a couple of ideas sparked in the imagination of what's possible. I think in the last, let's say, 18 months, since I've entered this world, I'm really impressed by the ecosystem, the community. You see there's a lot of development, a lot of great engineering happening, and especially with some of the partnerships and what's happening, for instance, with Apple. I think that's been a great impulse with the Vision Pro, but it's not just the Vision Pro, it's the way they're managing the distribution pipe. So that's also where we see ourselves as working with Apple as well as a couple other big corporations to say, hey, we want to bring 3D into everybody's pocket, and we want to create these new use cases that create the excitement and take us to a new world. So thank you very much for your time, attention. If you have any questions, I think now's the moment, right?
That was very efficient. Thanks for being here. And I'm gonna, without further ado, opening the floor for whoever has a question. But just a few keywords here. I heard volumetric cloud, video cloud. It's about HR and onboarding, training, but in a more immersive, realistic way. So following this trend, who has a question that would like an answer? Can I? We still have some time, so please feel free.
Come on.
Well, I can, okay, there is one question there, otherwise I would have asked my own question. But I see someone here.
Hi, thank you, Linda from TU Munich. One question about you are bringing volumetric rendering over the network. So I could imagine that this is a lot of data you are using there, and if you have people in their home offices or somewhere, it might be hard to actually do that. Or am I not at the point in time or behind?
So actually, based on our proprietary technology, is voxel structure and rendering, we can compress the data to 10 megabits per second. So it's basically similar to Netflix, if you want, but for a live stream. And that's thanks to the capabilities of the voxels, because you can really change the bandwidth on the fly and concentrate voxels on the face to keep the high details that you need in the interaction and reduce the number of voxels on your body.
That was a very good question indeed, and I think it is worth mentioning that next time, because just this is quite a good innovation, the data compression aspect.
Maybe just to add to it, think of it like a YouTube video, right? You can actually toggle down to what type of bandwidth you want to have. Obviously, the trade-off is let's say, the quality. Well, with the voxels, unlike point clouds, polygons, we are much more adaptive. So like I said about the earlier case about eyes, we can focus just 4K on the eyes to create the trust, but the rest can go down to 720. And that's how we can, let's say, manipulate the bandwidth discussion. Yeah?
Mine is less, even though you are more involved on the technical side, also from Unity. I'm more curious about, because you are deeply involved in this, more on the societal side of things. If holograms are more in our lives and we use them day to day, what do you see the biggest societal change would be in the future, and how would this be all over our life, basically?
I can answer.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully connecting with people will be easier, especially in situations like the pandemic, which we were all remote from each other. This will really provide you a truly or closer to reality social interaction with your family, with your colleagues. That will be one of the advantages of engaging with other people.
So I have a different take. We're on the threshold. So if you think of a typical hologram, we create roughly about 40 to 50 million three-dimensional pixels. If you think about an eye scan or a fingerprint, that's 176 unique points. We can offer 40 million. So there are some advantages, I think, from a security point of view, which the holograms can offer. But from a societal change, effectively, we're now taking a full three-dimensional rendering of a person. Right? And I think that obviously has some data privacy issues and things like this. So if we're all worried about faces and things, I think that's going to create some new issues as we become more and more dependent on really a three-dimensional spatial computing. Right? Because you basically can create AI models and things like this because you'll have a full body scan of the individual. So I think one societal impact is that, privacy, security, those kind of things. I also think that the fact is that everyone imagines they want to get to a science fiction scenario like the holodeck in Star Trek. I think we're on the verge of doing that now, right? If you look at the type of technology on light field display on the big screens, if you look at the fact that we can be in holograms and we can truly transport ourselves, bandwidth discussions are being solved, that will become, remote work will truly be like literally holoporting ourselves into that, let's say, hyper-realistic office space, albeit remote. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then the other thing I would say right away, another project that we're looking at is with something like the CERN. They basically very interested in saying, I can't quite get into the collider for obvious reasons, because That's if you are familiar with the CERN's work in sense of atom collisions. and
Maybe
stuff.
if I may suggest that we continue this discussion about nuclear parts.
Okay, I was just saying that sometimes you have to get to spaces, as an example, where if you want to work together in a dangerous space, that's holograms and 3D and spatial computing will probably be the only way to achieve that. So.
Apologies again, but thank you very much for this detail. I will add one thing about the the human aspects. Inclusion. Let's say, for example, I'm an educator, I work in the space sector, we have a plan for metaverse, and I can't have my avatar looking just like me using generative AI or any other plugin that exists. With this kind of hologram, that could make someone that looks like me to be providing coaching for people regardless of where they're based. So I invite you to follow up on a discussion with that team that is building an amazing technology. And I thank you again for your company and what you're working on.